W5FC. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Oh, yes, it's 9 o'clock. You thought I forgot. No, I did not forget. This is KE5ICX. My name is Tom. I'll be your net control for tonight's DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subjects of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign break, break. Say that very enthusiastically, followed by your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? Now's your chance. This is a directed net, so please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me, and stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on this frequency with a PL tone of 110.9er. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node. Write this down, 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, live audio, video links are available online. Just go to the club website, which is W5FC.org right now for the complete list and all the hot links. All amateur operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. This net is approximately 90 minutes long and is structured in the following parts. We have general announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope, National Space Society events, discussion topic of the evening, space exploration and space history, what's up and constellation of the week, space launches of the week, recent astronomical discoveries, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, astronomical Q&A, and the 73 round. And depending on time, we may or may not get to all of them. All amateurs with license to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. So let us start with low power short time. I will start with you. Please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from. Let me know if you're low power short time.
November 5, Whiskey, Oscar, India, William, and Allen, short time, N5WI.
Oscar Sierra Hotel Russ, Farmers Ranch, short time.
Kilo, Golf, 5, Juliet, Papa, November, Mark, Oak Cliff, low power.
good. I got 3 on the low power short time. I got N5WOI. That's William and Alan. Short time N5OSH. That's Russ and I believe Farmers Branch. He's short time. KG5JPN Mark in Oak Cliff. He's low power. Anyone else low power short time? Please come now. All right, since you're short, I've got 2 short timers there. If either of you have anything you want to bring to the net, we will do it right now. So please come with your call if you do. All right, let's go to regular check-ins. That does not mean that the previous 3 people who checked in were irregular, but I know that some of them, and they might be. In any case, I will take regular check-ins, general check-ins. Please come now with your call sign name, where you're transmitting from. Here we go.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Bill and Irving.
This is Kilo Golf 5 Echo India Uniform, David, St. Paul, Texas.
This is Kilo India 5 Gulf Romeo Hotel, Melissa in Dallas.
Kilo Foxtrot 5 Zulu Bravo Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch.
Kilo 5 Kilo Tango X-Ray, Kelly in Quinlan.
This is Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brenda in DeSoto.
This is Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha, Chaz, Mesquite.
Kilo Foxtrot 5 Tango Sierra Kilo, Burl in Dallas.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James in Carrollton.
This is Kilo India 5, Juliet Foxtrot Charlie, Andrew in Mesquite.
All right, that's pretty good. Let me go ahead and get everybody checked in on this round. I've got N5BB, Bill in Irving, KG5EIU, David in St. Paul, KF5GRH, Melissa in Dallas. By the way, I got from Birdie that you got your upgrade. Congratulations. KF5ZBL, Bill in Farmers Branch, K5KTX, Kelly in Quinlan, WB5OZL, Miss Brenda DeSoto, KF5JJ, Chaz in Mesquite, KF5TSK, Burl in Dallas, KG5WVL, James in Carrollton, KI5JFC, that's Andrew in Mesquite. I will take additional check-ins now. Please come with your call sign name, where you're transmitting from.
Alpha 5 Alpha Hotel, Robert Richardson.
Kilo India 5 Juliet Foxtrot Alpha, Shelby in Mesquite.
All right, I got 2 more on that one. I got Alpha 5 Alpha Hotel, that's Robert in Richardson, and then I got KI5JFA, that's Shelby. Shelby, can you tell me your city again? You were kind of lost in the noise for a second.
KI5JFA, Shelby from Mesquite.
Thank you. I got the call sign wrong, so I got KI5JFH, Shelby in Mesquite. Welcome, welcome. All right, I'm going to move over to Echolink. You're over on Echolink. Go ahead and Check in now. I will give you extra time. Echolink only. Please come with your call sign name where you're transmitting from.
E0, Mike, Bravo, Charlie, Shane, and
Bethany, Blue Springs, Echolink.
Kilo, Golf, 5, Bravo, Zulu, Whiskey, J, Neil Weather. Kilo 5, Juliet, Delta Whiskey, John in Norman, Oklahoma.
All right, we actually got 4 on that one. I've got W0, MBC, that's Shane and Bethany over in Blue Springs, Missouri. Welcome, welcome. KG5BZW. I did that wrong. I wrote it down wrong. I know better than that. Jay over in Weatherford and K5GDW. John in his summer home up in Norman, Oklahoma. All right, I'll go ahead and open it up to anybody, anywhere, any mode. Please come now with your call sign name, where you're transmitting from. I guess that's it for this round. That's okay. Pretty good round of check-ins. We're up to 19. So do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be of ham, astronomical space, or of general interest to licensed hams. I'll take that now. Okay, don't forget, AMSAT, the Amateur Radio Satellite Group, has 2 nets available in Dallas Tuesday evenings at 8. You need Echolink as this comes out of Houston. Just look for the group named AMSAT, AMSAT. And you can also listen to a live link there at amsatnet.com. They've been doing that for at least 20 years now. Don't forget, DARC has nets all throughout the week. Mondays are our rotating nets. We have first week Ham Fixins, second week MCOM 101, third week Ham Fixins again, double helping, and the fourth week GeekNet. Don't forget, too, the National Traffic System has a training net here at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. You're welcome to check in. Even Echolink is allowed. Now let me go ahead and give you the Afterglow movie info for tonight. Everyone write this down. There will be a test. The 3 amateur astronomers opened the station wagon's tailgate and set up their equipment. One guy had a Dobsonian mount 16-inch telescope he never actually looked through, probably because of a big green glowing thing inside it whenever he turned it on. The second amateur astronomer put all his antennas up, pointing some at the sky and others toward the horizon. It didn't make any sense, but what do I know? He did have a nice HF rig, though. The third astronomer, listen carefully, the third astronomer had driven them to the location and seemed to have no equipment, instead caffeinated up on a big gulp and offering a really bad pun every 10 minutes. The other 2 ignored him. In fact, they told him they saw Bigfoot hiding behind a tree about a mile from their site. So the astronomer picked up the worst camera in his possession and struck out, intent on getting a picture of the big fellow. Join us for the next Afterglow movie. That's tonight. How Cosmos with a C, not the K one. We already did that one. Cosmos with a C from 2019 tonight at 10:30 p.m. You can keep up with all DARC events, nets, and activities by going to the club website, which is w5fc.org. Next up, I have Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope, which is not much right now. Does anybody want to say anything here? Otherwise, I'll just let Chaz do his thing during his event. But maybe you guys got something for me. Anybody like to bring info on the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas? Please come now.
Oh, I want to do it twice. KF5, JHA.
The funny guy is on. Go ahead, Chaz. KF5JHA from KE5ICX.
I recognize a couple of the descriptive items in the Afterglow movie. Oh, well. Okay, so the next meeting of the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas is going to be on June the 26th. That's a Friday. And we're going to have a featured speaker. Oh, it's going to be on Zoom. Our featured speaker is going to be a NASA astronaut, Don Pettit. He's actually been on this net before, 5 years ago. Kelly, K5KTX, she interviewed him. And Billy was sitting right beside him, KF5PDS. And Don Pettit is actually a ham radio operator, KD5MDT. So he will be our featured speaker. That's going to be at 7:30 on June the 26th on Zoom. If you want to get access to that, just contact one of the club members or club officers, I should say, and they can help you out with that. So the Saturday observing sessions with telescopes is not going on, hasn't been going on since the beginning of March. So hopefully we'll be able to continue that sometime soon. TexasAstro.org is the place to get some information for that. This is KF5JHA. Back to you.
Well, thank you, Chaz, and I hope we get back to some sort of normalcy. I was at the Frontiers of Flight Museum doing my volunteer work back on this past Sunday, which was kind of nice, and social distancing because there were only 20 people that showed up for the entire 5 hours I was there. So, oh well. And they didn't all show up together. It's sort of in gackles, but at any rate. Okay, let's see here. Next up is National Space Society events and activities. That's usually handled by Bill, N5BB. Bill, you got anything for us for this week from KE5ICX?
Hi, Tom. This is N5BB. I'm the membership director of the National Space Society North Texas chapter. Well, like everything else, we're shut down from doing in-person meetings like we normally do at museums and schools and even our meeting at a restaurant. So tomorrow, instead of having an in-person meeting, we're again having a WebEx session, and our speaker may interest some people here on the net. It's Robert Reeves. He is known for a project that he called 365 Days of the Moon, where he was taking a bunch of pictures of the moon every day. And he's in San Antonio. He has a lot of telescopes. I had a conversation with him on WebEx yesterday morning as we were testing the stuff out. So anyway, if we can host some visitors. So if you would like to listen to this presentation, it'll be WebEx. You can do that by sending me an email, bill@byram.net or n5bb@byram.net, either one. That's November 5 Bravo Bravo at Bravo Yankee Romeo Oscar Mary .net, byram.net. Tell me if you'd like to participate, and I will send you a WebEx invite. The WebEx session starts at 4 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, Sunday. And expect it to last about an hour, his presentation. That's all I've got for now in 5BB.
All right, thank you, Bill. Thanks for that. Does anybody need any fills? Please come down.
Oh, and by the way, he's going to talk about things like possible lunar landing sites, places there might be water, things like that. That's what he's using his photos for. And 5BB.
Okie dokie, thank you, Bill. And that's Bill at Byram.net or N5BB Byram.net. So by all means, check it out, and that's tomorrow. All right, since, let me see if this still works. I'm going to do a little bit of everything here. So, yeah, it's working. Okay, so discussion topic of the evening. This was actually an article that just kind of bubbled up over on the interwebs this morning. And it is the article, I paraphrased it, Roscomos head weighs in on NASA's return to flight. This is Dmitry Rogozin, and he is the guy that runs the Roscomos website, space stuff, the Federal Space Agency, which is Roscosmos. Roscosmos, I'll get it, because that's our movie, Cosmos. It's Roscosmos, so it's the Russian version of our movie. He is the head Russian federal, the head of the Russian Federal Space Agency, Roscosmos. He published a lengthy op-ed expressed mixed feelings about the recent SpaceX Demo 2 launch, the International Space Station. He had an op-ed. I did not read the original op-ed. I read the summary because I need cliff notes. I think this thing went on forever. But it is available on the Roscosmos website and was previously published in Forbes, and points towards Russia's future plans in space as the United States moves most of its crewed opportunities back to American soil. So let's get started. I greatly butchered this piece a bit because it was rather long, so let's see if I can make the continuity work. Demo 2 is the first of what will likely be American crewed commercial space flights. Flights by SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule and eventually Boeing's Starliner spacecraft should largely replace the Russian Soyuz missions that NASA astronauts have relied upon since Space Shuttle's retirement in 2011. In crewed spaceflight, sorry, I got doggy crazy going over here. In crewed spaceflight, with people going into space aboard the vehicles, reliability is key to evaluate the technical means of ensuring safety of the crews, Rogozin wrote in the op-ed. Thus, the closure of the space shuttle came as a predictable and forced measure, as Americans lost as many as 2 crews. Disasters and emergencies have already occurred in crewed cosmonautics, but none of them took this many lives at once. I think you kind of get an idea. It's a little prejudiced. I wish they'd get their license and find a radio. The Russian Soyuz MS spacecraft that carries crews today, Roscomos said, is the world's most reliable spacecraft, that's in quotes, with 173 successful flights and 3 aborts in 1975, 1983, and 2018, one per year, that is, and allowed the the crews to eject safely. The Soyuz rocket that carries the spacecraft overall has more than 1,900 successful launches. This is the rocket stage itself. U.S. engineers have yet to earn this reputation. I sincerely wish them luck, he says. Rogozin said that NASA was hectically searching for a solution to replace the space shuttle, a process that ultimately took about 17 years after the fatal Columbia accident in 2003. In 2004, the President George W. Bush announced that the shuttles would be retired. Commercial crew replacements began taking shape under the administration under President Barack Obama, with SpaceX and Boeing receiving spacecraft build contracts in 2014 after several competitive rounds involving other companies. The first launch of a crewed commercial vehicle was delayed by several years due to technical and funding issues, but ultimately happened with the Demo 2 on May 30th of this year. Rogozin drew a few parallels between Crew Dragon and the costs of large programs in Russia, including a future lunar spacecraft and a relatively new Vostochny cosmodrome that could eventually be used to launch Russian cosmonauts, who today launch from Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. The budget funds allocated to Elon Musk are 3 times bigger than the funding of the contract between Roscomos and RSC Energia to develop a much more complex Russian lunar Oreo spacecraft, or that's Oreo is in Eagle, Rogozin said. By the way, the Vostochny Cosmodrome costs 2.5 times cheaper, I'm not sure how you do that, but okay, than this purportedly private spacecraft, taking into account that the Cosmos drone is being built in the Amartya, an 8-hour flight away from Moscow with no necessary workforce nor construction machinery or logistics centers. All of that we had to bring or create there in the far east of Russia. The new American spacecraft are more than double the weight of the Soyuz while offering only 1 additional seat, Rogozin said. He added that the size of the rockets needed to launch Crew Dragon, a SpaceX Falcon 9, or a Starliner using a United Launch Alliance Atlas V are much heavier than what is required for Soyuz, which uses a medium-class Soyuz 2.1A rocket. He argued that on that comparison, Russia launches remain cheaper than American launches. Rogozin also provided some hints about the future Russian space program as the U.S. moves more into commercial crew. He pointed to the long space history Russia has. For example, Yuri Gagarin, a Soviet Union cosmonaut, was the first person to reach space in 1961. He says, "We remain dominant," Rogozin added, saying Musk's flight was more a slight against Boeing than Russia. "This war is theirs, but not ours," he said. The lengthy article can be found on space.com and includes 8 future goals of the Russian program. You can go to w5fc.org website and check the notes for Skynet for that information. And the article in its entirety is Russian space chief weighs in on SpaceX historic astronaut launch, located at space.com. Well, I may have truncated it a little too much now that I think about it, but I didn't want it to go too long. But there's a ton of stuff in there and future plans. And I will tell you this, a lot of the plans include big space items like going to the moon and Mars and all that. But as we have seen in the past, a lot of times these things never come to fruition. Also, this fellow, if you go back and do a back check on Dmitry Rogozin, is rather controversial to say the least. So I think he's more of a politician than he is a space guy. So you can look him up and find out how divisive he is. He's one of those guys. So by all means, check it out. You'll learn more. This was just posted on the space.com website this morning, so it should be interesting. All right, this is KE5ICX. I'm net control for tonight's Skynet. I'll tell you what, I'll take additional check-ins now before we move on to space exploration and space history. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come now with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
Kilo 5, Alpha November Papa.
Kilo 5, Golf Lima Delta, Randy Rowlett.
All right, I picked up Tony, NT5TM, over in Dallas, and I got K5ANP. I should know who that is, but could you give me your name and location, please?
Sorry, it's Alan in Dallas, K5AM.
Alan in Dallas. I knew that. I was just checking if you did. K5GLD, that's Randy and Rowlett. Anyone else? All right, we will continue. Our next section is space exploration and space history. And this week that is handled by Kelly, K5KTX. Miss Kelly, the net is yours.
Thank you, Tom. Good evening, everyone. This is K5KTX. Just as our own floats away from Earth a tiny bit more each year, other moons are doing the same with their host planets. As it orbits, its gravity pulls on the planet, causing a temporary bulge in the planet as it passes. Over time, the energy created by the bulging and subsiding transfers from the planet to the moon, nudging it farther and farther out. Our moon drifts 1.5 inches from Earth each year. Scientists thought they knew the rate at which the giant moon Titan is moving away from Saturn, but they recently made a surprising discovery. Using data from NASA's Cassini spacecraft, they found Titan drifting 100 times faster than previously understood, about 4 inches per year. The findings may help address an age-old question. While scientists know that Saturn formed 4.6 billion years ago in the early days of the solar system, there's more uncertainty about when the planet's rings and its system of more than 80 moons formed. Titan is currently 750,000 miles from Saturn. The revised rate of its drift suggests that the moon started out much closer to Saturn, which would mean the whole system expanded more quickly than previously believed. Valerie Laney, lead author of the work published June 8th in Nature Astronomy, conducted the research as a scientist at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Southern California before joining the Paris Observatory at PSL University. The findings on Titan's rate of drift also provide important confirmation of a new theory that explains and predicts how planets affect their moon's orbits. For the last 50 years, scientists have applied the same formulas to estimate how fast a moon drifts from its planet, a rate that can also be used to determine a moon's age. Those formulas and the classical theories on which they're based were applied to moons large and small all over the solar system. The theories assume that in systems such as Saturn's, with dozens of moons, the outer moons like Titan migrated outward more slowly than moons closer in because they are farther from their host planet's gravity. 4 years ago, theoretical astrophysicist Jim Fuller, now of Caltech, published research that upended those theories. Fuller's theory predicted that outer moons can migrate outward at a similar rate to inner moons because they become locked in a different kind of orbit pattern that links to the particular wobble of a planet and slings them outward. Fuller, who is co-author of the new paper, said, "The new measurements imply that these kind of planet-moon interactions can be more prominent than prior expectations, and that they can apply to many systems, such as other planetary moon systems, and exoplanets, those outside our solar system, and even binary star systems where stars orbit each other. To reach their results, the authors mapped stars in the background of Cassini images and tracked Titan's position. To confirm their findings, they compared them with an independent data set, radio science data collected by Cassini. During 10 close flybys between 2006 and 2016, the spacecraft sent radio waves to Earth. Scientists studied how the signal's frequency was changed by their interactions with their surroundings to estimate how Titan's orbit evolved. By using two completely different data sets, we obtained results that are in full agreement and also in agreement with Jim Fuller's theory, which predicted a much faster migration of Titan, said co-author Paolo Tortora of Italy's University of Bologna. Tortora is a member of the Cassini radio science team and worked on the research with the support of the Italian Space Agency. Managed by JPL, Cassini was an orbiter that observed Saturn for more than 13 years before exhausting its fuel supply. The mission plunged it into the planet's atmosphere in September 2017, in part to protect its moon Enceladus, which Cassini discovered might hold conditions suitable for life. In space history this week, back on June the 8th, happy birthday to astronaut Bruce McCandless, who flew on STS-41B Challenger and STS-31 Discovery. McCandless made the first untethered spacewalk during STS-41B while wearing the newly minted manned maneuvering unit. He also tested the manipulator foot restraint. As a member of STS-31, he helped deploy the Hubble Space Telescope. McCandless died on December 21st, 2017 at age 80. On June the 10th, back in 1971, officials from the United States and the Soviet Union met in Moscow to exchange samples returned from the moon. Lee R. Scherer, then director of the Apollo Lunar Exploration Office, presented 3 grams each of lunar samples harvested during Apollo 11 and 12 to the Soviet officials. In exchange, Alexander P. Vinogradov, the vice president of the Soviet Academy of Sciences, presented other NASA officials with 3 grams from the Soviet Luna 16 mission, robotic sample return mission. In his formal remarks, Scherer noted that the exchange represented a willingness on both sides to further cooperation in space. Although the quantity of material is small, he said, its significance is very great. Scherer also remarked that the exchange allowed scientists from both countries the opportunity to study lunar materials from new areas. After the ceremony, the New York Times reported that the officials disappeared to wash down the lunar dust with champagne. Also on June the 10th, in 2003, Mars Exploration Rover A, named Spirit, launched. Spirit and its twin rover Opportunity were sent to Mars in search of answers about the history of water on Mars. Spirit landed in the Gusev crater in early 2004 and found that Mars was once much wetter than it is today. Spirit made its last contact with Earth on March 22nd, 2010. At that point, it had already operated 20 times longer than the planned 90-day mission. June the 11th, 1957, the U.S. Air Force launched the first Atlas rocket in Canaveral, Florida. The Atlas, a path-breaking design in many ways, was being developed as an intermediate-range ballistic missile. On this first test flight, the missile lost thrust approximately 24 seconds into flight due to a failure in the booster fuel system and began to loop around itself. Less than a minute after the initial launch, the missile was detonated by the range safety officer at an altitude of 5,000 feet. Despite the missile's failure, this launch provided valuable information regarding the airframe and propulsion system. After a challenging development program and modifications, the Atlas was ready for military use. A later version of the Atlas was used to launch John Glenn in Friendship 7 and all subsequent Mercury flights into orbit. The launch of prototype Atlas, although a failure, was an important step in the American journey towards human spaceflight. Also on June the 11th, back in 2008, the Fermi Gamma Ray Space Telescope launched as the Gamma Ray Large Area Space Telescope, or GLAST. The telescope was renamed that August in honor of Enrico Fermi, a pioneer in high-energy physics. Fermi observes the cosmos using the highest energy form of light, gamma rays. Mapping the entire sky every 3 hours, Fermi provides an important window into the most extreme phenomena of the universe, from gamma ray bursts and black hole jets to pulsars, supernova remnants, and the origin of cosmic rays. And finally, on this day, June the 13th, back in 1963, NASA signed the contract with the David Clark Company for the development and manufacture of the Gemini spacesuits. The total cost, including fixed fee of the contract, was $829,594.80. Over the next few years, the David Clark Company worked with NASA to develop several modified designs for use on Gemini. You may be most familiar with the G4C suit, developed in 1965. It was worn by astronaut Ed White during his Gemini 4 EVA, the first U.S. spacewalk. The NASA-David Clark relationship did not end with Project Gemini. The David Clark Company went on to develop the Apollo communications carrier, the Shuttle Launch Entry Suit, and the Shuttle Advanced Crew Escape Suit. And that's all I've got this evening. This is K5KTX. Back to you, Tom.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly, and thank you for your report. It's always appreciated and very interesting week in space. This is KE5ICS. I'm Net Control. We'll take a quick, brief respite here and take additional check-ins. If you'd like to join us, please come now with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from.
November 5, Sierra, Quebec Alpha, Ron, beautiful downtown Dallas.
All right, I got one more. I got Ron, N5SQA in downtown Dallas. Beautiful downtown Dallas. Thanks for joining us, Ron. Okay, let me see here. Let me reset this thing and reset that thing, and I'm ready for the next thing, which would be Chaz. KF5JHA. Chaz, you're up with What's Up from KE5ICX.
Good evening, everyone. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. My degree is in astrophysics, and I am the astrophysics lab manager at Brookhaven Community College. We call this segment of Skynet What's Up. I'll also be doing Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. But first, let's get to What's Up. The moon is at its third quarter phase right now, today, June the 13th. The moon will be new on June the 21st, and the moon will be at its first quarter phase on June the 28th. The planet Venus went through its inferior conjunction of the sun on June the 3rd. That's just, 10 days ago. And the planet Mercury will go through its inferior conjunction with the sun on June the 30th. What does this mean? That means that Venus moved from the evening sky to the morning sky a few days ago, and Mercury is still in the evening sky, but will move to the morning sky at the end of June. This morning, if you awakened early on June the 13th, was a conjunction between the planet Mars and the moon. Mars and Earth are getting closer and closer together all the time. And on October the 6th, Mars and the Earth will be at their closest they've been since the summer of 2018. On June the 19th, wake up early to observe the moon and Venus in conjunction in the Hyades star cluster. The Hyades is the star cluster that makes up the face of Taurus the Bull. This will be an interesting photographic opportunity for some of you astrophotographers. And on June the 23rd in the evening, the thin crescent moon will be passing by the Beehive star cluster in the constellation of Cancer the Crab. Now, once again, this could be a great photo opportunity for astrophotographers. You might be able to get the thin crescent moon and some of the stars in the Beehive cluster in the same field of view. Even though the moon's usually brighter, it's a very thin crescent. You only have a short time to do this before both the Beehive and the moon will set. On July the 5th, look at the southeastern sky around 11 p.m. to find a trio of objects. The brightest object will be the moon. Above the moon will be Jupiter, and to the left of the moon will be Saturn. Jupiter and Saturn are getting closer and closer to each other in the sky. On the evening, the 2 evenings of December the 20th and 21st, at twilight, Jupiter and Saturn will be so close that they will appear as a single object to the unaided eye. In telescopes, you'll see both Jupiter and Saturn in the same field of view. Once again, this is going to be a great photographic opportunity. Of course, Jupiter and Saturn will not be that close to each other in outer space. They will be more than 300 million miles apart. Two meteor showers in June can be watched. The June Lyrids will peak this week on the night of June the 16th, 17th. The June Lyrid meteor shower has only been observed a few times since 1966. It could have a couple of dozen meteors per hour, or it might not have any meteors. The second meteor shower in June is the June Boötids, which peak on the night of June 26th, 27th. Once again, it varies in intensity from 0 meteors up to more than 100 meteors per hour. So it's worth watching. Okay, this is the end of the Was Up segment, and now the beginning of Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. My call sign is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, which is named in honor of a silent key, Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 constellations out of the 88 constellations easily visible in Texas throughout the year, Carolyn covered the entire sky in a year. In her honor, we have continued that tradition of a constellation per week. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week is Virgo. The constellation of Virgo is a young maiden. Virgo is also one of the signs of the zodiac, and where you might find the planets, the sun, the moon, located within its boundaries. Virgo can be easily found by using the Big Dipper. Follow the arc of the handle of the Big Dipper to the star Arcturus in the constellation of Boötes. We talked about Boötes a couple of weeks ago. Then continue the arc to spy the star Spica. Spica is the brightest star in Virgo, but I'm not going to talk about Spica because Virgo is famous for its galaxies. Virgo has so many galaxies that I could spend a couple of hours describing them. So the Afterglow movie will be delayed starting about 12:30 a.m. tonight. Okay, I'm just kidding. I'll abbreviate this. The constellation Virgo is the center of the closest large cluster of galaxies and can take up several evenings to be observing if you take the time to do that. If you're looking at the video version of Skynet, all those little red ellipses that you see are galaxies. Those are just the bright ones. There are thousands of galaxies in this area, and in some cases it's difficult to move a whole telescope field of view without seeing several galaxies. A good star atlas is a must in this region for identifying all the galaxies visible in a telescope of moderate aperture. while I'm only going to describe some of the brighter members here, I encourage you all to try navigating this area. It would be hard not to improve your observing skills by meeting this challenge head on, and I need to do that myself. I always have a hard time looking at those galaxies and identifying which one is which when I'm looking at that area. The first object I want to talk about is M58, with the dimensions of 5 minutes by 2 minutes in size. This is one of the larger spiral galaxies in this region. It is sort of spindle shape. It's oriented northeast to southwest. It has a broadly concentrated center. There is a relatively bright star nearby to the west, so it's fairly easy to find in this huge cluster of galaxies. M61. This galaxy is a face-on spiral, about 6 minutes by 4 minutes in size, oriented from north-northeast to south-southwest. It is fairly even in brightness except for stellar nucleus and some faint modeling along its eastern and western sides. The next object is really two I want to talk about because they're right side by side, M84 and M86. These relatively bright galaxies are very similar in appearance and are visible in the same low-powered field of view. They are both considered spiral galaxies with no visible arms. M84 is round, about 3 minutes of arc in diameter, and has a large diameter core and a stellar nucleus. M86 is larger, a little bit larger, about 25% larger, and fainter, and also has a stellar nucleus. The next object is M87. It's a very bright galaxy, about 4 minutes in diameter, and it has a large core and non-stellar nucleus. It's an elliptical galaxy, which are usually the largest of all the galaxies. Okay, I've saved the best object for last. M104 is the Sombrero galaxy. This one is the finest showpiece of objects in maybe the entire sky. This is a beautiful edge-on galaxy. It's 10 minutes by 2 minutes in size, oriented east to west, and has an obvious central bulge with a distinct dark lane. You can see it if you're looking at the video version. You can see the dark lane running right through the length of the galaxy. This is an object that you can't miss. You've got to be looking at it. And my call sign is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. There are tons more Astronomical League observing program objects in this constellation of Virgo. I've just given you a sampling, a few of those objects. The Astronomical League has over 60 different observing programs. Most have about 100 objects. If you observe 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can actually earn an observing certificate in just 1 year period of time. Okay, and that is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. Virgo, I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for their research on the deep sky objects that I have used tonight. Next week, we'll take a look at the constellation of Libra. It's also another constellation of the zodiac where you might find the planets, the moon, or the sun. And once again, the next meeting of the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas is on June the 26th. It'll be another virtual club meeting using Zoom. Don Pettit, NASA astronaut, will be the featured speaker. And once again, he was interviewed on Skynet 5 years ago. And yes, he's an amateur radio operator, KD5MDT. So this will be fun. Texas Astronomical Society meeting. It really will be. And yes, there is an amateur radio on board the ISS. You can contact some of those people up there if you want to. If you want to actually see the video of this interview that took place 5 years ago, go search on YouTube, Don Pettit interview, Skynet, March 21, 2015. It's my YouTube channel, and I posted that video quite some time ago. Okay, I assume that we'll have some face-to-face meetings and maybe some public observing stations sometime soon, but to get detailed information about that, check out the Texas Astronomical website at texasastro.org for details. Now, do any of you out there in Radioland have any questions or need a fill on any information, or do you just have a general astronomy question? I don't know everything, but I may know the answer to your question. Come now with your call sign if you have a question.
This is WE5OZL with a question.
OZL.
5 Juliet Delta Whiskey with a question.
I'm sorry, I've doubled with one person. OZL, come with your question now.
Yes. I was wondering how they figure the altitude of mountains on the moon. If you're on here on the Earth, you would use mean sea level as your baseline, and a mountain would be, so many feet above that. On the moon, what is the baseline for figuring altitude? And are there any areas that are below that, such as we have Death Valley, which is below sea level? Are there any negative altitudes on the moon?
Now, that's a great question about negative. I'm not sure. I know there is a mean moon level, and you measure above that. Let me give you some information that maybe you didn't really want, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. You can measure the height of the mountains above their base by just looking at the shadows and the angle of the sunlight. Galileo did that back in the 1600s. He measured the height of the mountains compared to the size of the moon. So he had a ratio. He didn't know the exact distance of the moon, but he had a ratio and came up very close within just a few percent of what the height of the mountains of the moon were. So that's kind of interesting. I have to look up that answer to, is there any negatives on the moon? I know there's a wide range of altitudes of things on the moon. Kelly, let me ask you, can you tell us, maybe you might know this, K5 KTX, can you answer that question about the moon altitudes?
A comment in 5BB.
And if he doesn't tell you, I will. NT5TM.
Oh, we have a bunch of people here. Bill, you're up next.
According to Wikipedia, which is always correct, you know that. In the 1960s, the U.S. Army mapping system used elevation relative to 1737,988 meters from the center of the moon. But in the 1970s, the U.S. Defense Mapping Agency used 1730,000 meters. And the Clementine topographic data in the 90s used 1737.4 kilometers. So they were 1737.988, 1730, and 1737.4 kilometers from the center of the moon as their base reference altitude in 5EB. Oh, by the way, the highest point on the far side of the moon is approximately 6.5 kilometers higher than the tallest mountain on the front side, I believe. Oh, that's crazy, in 5EB.
Well, thank you, Bill. Hey, Tony, you're up next. Give us your wisdom.
Thank you, Chaz. Yes, like Bill said, this is basically a made-up number. Different mapping agencies have tried to figure out what the average radius of the moon is, and they call things above average positive and things below average negative. So yes, there are definitely negative numbers on the moon. And a similar problem exists on Mars because Mars has no atmosphere. So map makers pick a point which is usually called the datum, which is Latin for a single piece of data. And they usually seem to do this at about 0.6 millibars because Mars has an atmosphere, so they've tried to use the atmosphere to some degree. But to some degree also, each person who makes these maps is making it up. I mean, there is no sea, so they're just trying to express some sort of average and say what's higher than average and what's lower than average. So there's a little bit of, it's not science fiction, but science fun in average heights and altitudes on both the moons and Mars. NT5TM.
Oh, that's an awful lot of information. Thank you so much. Brenda, did that come up with the answers that you were looking for?
Yes, thank you very much. WB50ZL.
Okay, I doubled with somebody, and I'm not sure who it was. Who is the other person that had another question? Come now with your call sign.
Five, Juliet, Delta Whiskey, John in Norman, Oklahoma.
And now I know why I doubled with you. I'm sorry I didn't wait long enough for those Echo Link folks. John, come now with your question.
Jazz, make sure I'm still online here. I was talking to a guy about the Deep Space Network and Voyager 1 and 2, and we were kind of, was watching those, and I was checking on them recently, and I actually saw Voyager 2. There was data going to it and coming back from it, and I've heard that Voyager 1 is kind of watching the heliopause and the sun's magnetic field influence, stuff like that, but the guy I was talking to asked me a question, said, what kind of data do they still get from the Voyager 1 and Voyager 2? And I really couldn't answer that. I thought that might be a good question. I also noticed that there was almost a 2-day round trip time on Voyager 1 when I saw it active a little while back. But anyway, that was my question. What kind of data are they still getting at a very low bit rate, by the way, from Voyager 1 and 2?
Oh, I don't think there's much data. I think they've shut almost everything down except that transmitter. Kelly would have the information about that. K5KTX. Come now with some information about Voyager 1, Voyager. Yes, Voyager 1, Voyager 2 out there.
Oh, it's so quiet. Oh, I kind of know NT5TM.
I think the only thing that it's transmitting is just slow data streams, not from any of its equipment, because I think almost everything's been turned off. But Tony, go ahead.
You're right that almost everything has been turned off, but that's not completely true. They still have a couple, I think one of them has 2 of its charged particle instruments on, and the other still has 1. One of them had a failure of one of its charged particle detectors many years ago. I want to say it's the plasma wave system, and there's something else on Voyager 2, and then on Voyager 1 just has 1 instrument. So they are doing a little bit of measurement of the charge to mass ratio of particles that are reaching them, because that's important, because it tells them about whether they're still in the heliosphere or moving out of it. But it's just 1 or 2 little charged particle detectors is all that's left. NT5TM.
Thank you, Tony. That sounds very familiar, because otherwise they wouldn't know where the heliopause is. All right. Hey, thank you so much for those questions. I really enjoy getting those questions. So everyone, think of those questions in the future and bring them to us. Hey, I want to welcome students from Brookhaven College that are listening and watching the Skynet tonight. Students, just a reminder that if you want to get stargazing class credits for this, then remember to fill out the form within the next 48 hours. So, as the moon wanes in the middle of June, so do these words: stay safe, keep well, pray for our world, and until next week, keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is Chaz, KF5JHA, back to net control. Or is that world control?
Always a good question. Always keep them guessing, Chaz. That's what it's all about. This is KE5ICX Net Control for tonight's Skynet. Thank you for the questions. I did find some information thanks to the Google. The Jet Propulsion Laboratory does list instrument status in real time here. So if you're on the Echolink node, you can, or not Echolink, but on the stream, you can see what's on. Voyager 1 and 2 has the Cosmic Ray Subsystem, or CRS, is still on. Low Energy Charged Particles, or LECP, is on. The magnetometer, or MAG, is on both. Plasma Wave Subsystems, or PWS, is on. And then the Plasma Science, PLS, is off on Voyager 1, but it continues to function on Voyager 2. Now, I believe none of these experiments are running at the same time because of limited power. The plutonium is running out. The RTG is starting to run down. And this is KE5ICX. Let's see here. I'll go ahead and take additional check-ins at this point if anybody would like to join us before we move on to the next section, which is space launches. But first, anyone else like to join us, please come with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from.
This is Whiskey Bravo number 4, Mike Foxtrot, India, WB4MFI, Ted, Dallas, low power.
Kilo Golf 5 Alpha Papa Lima, Patrick in downtown Dallas.
Check.
Well, I got 2.1 people out of that. I got WB4MFI Ted in Dallas, low power. Got you, Ted, and welcome back. KG5APL, that's Patrick in Dallas. I have you checked in. And then there was somebody over on Echolink. I got just a bleep indicating you were on Echolink. Try again.
Hoping for a recheck.
Okay, very good. Again, I was paying real close attention. There's a lot of people on Echolink, but the recheck over on Echolink, go ahead with your recheck and comments from KE5ICX.
I have a third party wishing to say goodnight.
Good night, Dallas Net.
Well, good night, Bethany, and thank you for listening in. We always like to have you here. We'll see you again next week on Saturday. Have a good evening. Okay, this is KE5ICX. Next up is the space flight now launch schedule. Some of these I've announced over and over again. but I do have some progress. There were 2 launches today, which I've mentioned over the last couple of weeks. The first one was the Electron Don't Stop Me Now, which was launched this morning from Launch Complex 1 in Mahia Peninsula, New Zealand. A 2-stage Electron booster rose off the pad at Rocket Lab's New Zealand launch site at 1:12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or I guess 12:12 a.m. our time, carrying 5 satellites aloft, including 3 payloads for the U.S. National Reconnaissance Office, or NRO. All 5 satellites were deployed successfully into their designated orbits. Rocket Lab representatives announced an hour after liftoff the mission named Don't Stop Me Now after the 1978 Queen song in honor of Rocket Lab's board member Scott Smith, who loved the song and died earlier this year, was originally scheduled to launch in late March. But because of shelter-in-place orders implemented to prevent the spread of the novel coronavirus, the company had to hit pause and push the liftoff back considerably. The Electron rocket is the workhorse vehicle of the private spaceflight company Rocket Lab, which provides launches for small to Earth orbit. The rocket's 2 stages stand 57 feet tall on the launch pad and can take payloads of up to 500 pounds during each mission. Also this morning, today, was the Falcon 9 Starlink 8, or SkySat 16 through 18. These were launched from Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida. SpaceX successfully launched its first rideshare mission into orbit today, June 13th, lofting a new batch of 58 Starlink Internet satellites along with 3 small Earth observation satellites before nailing a Falcon 9 rocket landing at sea. The launch is the 2nd Starlink mission so far this month, with 1 more on schedule for no earlier than June 22nd. SpaceX is taking advantage of its fleet of flight-proven Falcon 9 boosters with plans of launching a record 4 times in August. Because the sky was so clear, the landing burn, which enables the rocket to safely land on a drone ship, was clearly visible from the launch site, roughly 350 miles away. Today's mission starred a veteran member of the SpaceX rocket fleet. The Falcon 9, whose first stage already had 2 flights under its belt before today's mission, had a sooty appearance resulting from the previous trips through the atmosphere. Upcoming missions include the Long March 3B on June 15th or 16th, somewhere in between at Baidu. The launch time will be about 10:15 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time on the 15th. The launch site is the Xichang in China. The Chinese Long March 3B rocket will launch a satellite for the country's Bendao navigation network towards geostationary orbit. The next one I have is June 17th, a Long March 2D, or Golfin 9-03. This will fly from Zhuquan, China. The Chinese Long March 2D will launch China's 3rd Golfin 9 series Earth observation satellite. June 18th, 19th, right in the early morning, an Space Vega rocket, designated VV-16, will launch on a small spacecraft mission service, or SSMS. This will be from ZLV Kourou, which is the French Guiana launch site. A proof-of-concept mission with around 50 microsatellites, nanosatellites, and CubeSats for commercial and institutional customers. This rideshare launch is the first flight of a multi-payload dispenser funded by the European Space Agency to allow the Vega rocket to deliver numerous small satellites to orbit on a single mission. Then I mentioned this earlier, June 22nd, the Starlink 9 Black Sky Global 5 and 6 mission from Launch Complex 39A, the old Apollo site. A SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket is expected to launch the 10th batch of approximately 60 satellites for SpaceX Starlink broadband network. A mission designated Starlink 9. 2 Earth observation microsatellites for the Black Sky Global, a Seattle-based company, will launch as ride-shared payloads on this mission. And then finally, guess what it is. What's the booster? Just take a wild guess. Yes, you're right. It's another Falcon 9. The GPS-3 SV-03 will launch from Launch Complex 40, the other one. Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, Florida. SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket will launch the U.S. Air Force third generation navigation satellite for the Global Positioning System. The satellite is built by Lockheed Martin. The Air Force previously planned to launch the second GPS-3 series satellite on this mission. This was delayed from October of last year. October, December, January, and March. All right, next up is Miss Brenda. She has something for us this evening. So, Miss Brenda, go ahead. WB50ZL, what do you got for us?
Thank you, Tom. This is WB50ZL. Well, I selected an article, and then I somehow hit the wrong button and put a totally different article that I did not intend to use in the script. So if you go by that, you will be confused. This is an article I wanted to read, and I'm going to read it. It unfortunately has no visuals, so it kind of doesn't matter that we missed that. The title is New Sun Clock Qualifies Extreme Space Weather Switch On and Off. Extreme space weather events can significantly impact systems such as satellites, communication systems, power distribution, and aviation. They are driven by solar activity, which is known to have an irregular but roughly 11-year cycle. By devising a new regular sun clock, researchers have found that the switch on and off of periods of high solar activity is quite sharp and are able to determine the switch on-off times. Their analysis shows that whilst extreme events can happen at any time, they are much less likely to occur in the quiet interval. The clock will help scientists to determine more precisely when the risk for solar storms is highest and help to plan the impacts of space weather on our space infrastructure. Important since the next switch on of activity may be imminent as solar activity moves from its current minimum. Published in Geophysical Research Letters by a team led by the University of Warwick, the sun clock uses the daily sunspot number record available since 1818 to map solar activity over 18 solar cycles to a standardized 11-year cycle or clock. No two solar cycles are the same, but using a mathematical technique known as the Hilbert transform, the researchers were able to standardize the solar activity cycle for the first time. The clock revealed that the transitions between quiet and active periods in solar activity are sharp. Once a clock is constructed from sunspot observations, it can be used to order observations of solar activity and space weather. These include occurrence of solar flares seen in X-ray by the GOES, that's G-O-E-S, satellites, and F10.7 solar radio flux that tracks solar coronal activity. These are all drivers of space weather on the Earth, for which the longest record is the AA index, based on magnetic field measurements in the UK and Australia, going back over 150 years. All these observations show the same sharp switch on and switch off times of activity. Once past switch on-off times are obtained from the clock, the occurrence rate of extreme events when the sun is active or quiet can be calculated. Lead author, Professor Sandra Chapman of the University of Warwick Center for Fusion, Space, and Astrophysics, said, scientists spend their lives trying to read the book of nature. Sometimes we create a new way to transform the data, and what appeared to be messy and complicated is suddenly beautifully simple. In this instance, our sun clock method showed clear switch on and switch off times, demarcating quiet and active intervals for space weather for the first time. Large events can happen at any time, but are much more likely around solar maximum. By cleanly ordering the observations, we found that in 150 years of geomagnetic activity at Earth, only a few percent occur during these quiet conditions. The ability to estimate the risk of a future solar superstorm occurring is vital for space and ground-based technologies that are particularly sensitive to space weather, such as satellites, communications system, power distribution, and aviation. If you have a system sensitive to space weather, you need to know how likely a big event is, and it's useful to know when we are in a quiet period, as it allows maintenance and other activities to make systems temporarily more fragile. The research was co-authored by a bunch of names. Doesn't matter. And the conclusion is we foresee that the door that this innovative work opens will lead to development of meaningful climatologies for solar activity and improved predictability that will result from that. This comes from ScienceDaily.com. Back to net, WB5OZL.
Very good. Thank you, Miss Brenda, and very interesting predictor. This is KE5ICX. I'm net control for tonight's Skynet. I'll go ahead and check in Rick, N5BMI. He's out of New Smyrna Beach, Florida. He ducked in over on the Facebook page, so I've got him checked in. Anyone else want to join us this evening before we move on to satellite passages? Please come now. Continue another little segment for me here, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days. Believe it or not, there are not many. I think this time of the year, I don't know what it is, the reflection is very unfavorable. Even the International Space Station shows low passes, but I did find one, that's it. One object and one pass, and this is the X-37B, which is the winged unmanned spacecraft. It has one good pass on June 15th. Let me pull that thing up here, since it is just that one. Whoops, maybe I got to read the thing first. That would help, right? Yeah, it would, wouldn't it? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm losing my mind. Here it is. June 15th. No brightness on this one because it says so, as it tumbles in orbit, it varies greatly. They've never even attempted to give us an actual relative brightness, so good luck seeing this thing. But it is June 15th at 21:02 in the evening. It'll reach its highest point at 21:05 or 10 o'clock local time at 53 degrees, and it falls to the north-northwest at 21:08. There is a second pass at 22:40. That's only at 13 degrees, so it's very low. So this one should go fairly high in the sky, go through Hydra, Leo Minor, just skim past Ursa Major, through Ursa Minor, and then through Cygnus, and then falls to the northeast. If you've not checked out the Heavens-Above website, Heavens Above with a dash in between.com, you should. It's got a lot of new features on here. I read some of them more last week. Check it out. It's really cool. You get a real-time positioning of the International Space Station and how it would look from space, from a spacecraft parked nearby. Kind of cool. As well as any satellite passes in real time that you can see passing overhead, whether you see them or not, which is pretty cool in and of itself. about. I'll go ahead and ask. There's an astronomical Q&A. We may have already done that with Chaz, but if you got something you want to ask the experts, well, they're not here, but everybody else is. So if anybody has any questions, please come with your call sign now. All right, let's see. One thing I wanted to mention, too, if you do check the notes out at w5fc.org for tonight's net, you will find the Pettis interview with Chaz. It is linked there, so if you didn't write down the info, you can just click on it. It will take you to Chaz's website. I didn't even know Chaz had, or to the Chaz's YouTube site. I've never been there, so this will be a most interesting adventure. What goes on in Chaz's head does not stay in Chaz's head. Apparently, it's also on YouTube. Okay, any final check-ins? I will take them now before we close out tonight's net. Please come now. All right, I'm calling it officially dead. Tonight we had 26 hams checking in tonight, including myself. Thanks to all of you. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. If you'd like to try your hand at this, contact one of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video feeds. Video archives and other useful internet resources by going to Club's website, which is whiskey5friedchicken.org at the conclusion of this net. Till next Saturday night, this is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray. My name's Tom, and I'll be closing the net at 22:26 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use. 7-3, everybody. Enjoy the evening discovering the universe. And we'll be back in about 5 minutes, around 10:30 or so-ish, with our movie discussion, which is Cosmos from 2018. Cosmos with a C. Go look it up. We'll be back then. This is KE5ICX, and we're clear until then.
Normal state. I'm completely operational and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow Movie Net.
Who do we have our net control for tonight? I forget who it is.
It should be that other guy.
Yeah, it's Kane's turn.
Not it.
Alright, well, the microphone's warmed up. I guess I'll take it. So, let's see. Besides, I got some questions for everybody anyway. This is KE5ICX. I guess I'll be Afterglow Movie Guy for now. Until Keen shows up. Maybe he'll show up. You never know. He may hear his name and say, oh, it's my turn. And that's exactly what it will sound like. But let me go ahead and get started with this thing. The weekly Afterglow Movie Net has to do with a movie that everybody gets assigned to, and then they get to watch and either enjoy it or not enjoy it, and write copious notes about why they enjoyed it or didn't enjoy it, or both, or neither. So where do they know ahead of time? Well, they find out at the end of this net at around midnight, or you can find out by going to Facebook and plugging in Afterglow, that's one word, movie, Afterglow movie, and ask to sign up. That will work. You can also, if you don't like Facebook, and a lot of people don't, just send me an email at Kilo Echo 5 India Charlie X-Ray, KE5ICX at yahoo.com. Let me know that you're interested in being on the Afterglow movie list. And when you do that, then I'll put you on the list, and I will tell you what the movie is for the next week, and then where you can find it where it's available online, since nobody's actually using Netflix DVD service anymore. Alright, I'm told that he's moving. He's borrowing, Kane borrowed somebody's truck to move, so in any case, he's on the truck right now, and who knows what's going to happen next. Let's see. Let me go ahead and give you a little plot summary here, and then I want to ask you a question before we get started. It says here, and this comes actually from their Internet Movie Database, somebody tells me it took 5 years to film this thing. Cosmos explores the thrilling first hours of first contact when 3 astronomers accidentally intercept what they believe to be a faint coded signal from a distant alien civilization. Thump, thump, thump. A clean, crisp signal cuts through the static and noise of space. When you've spent years listening to the sounds of the cosmos, you get used to hearing weirdness, but Mike Webster knows this is no ordinary signal. It's not a pulsar or a black hole. It's not interference. It's something different, something logical, something with purpose. As part of a 3-man astronomy team crammed into a car kitted out with all manner of stellar studying equipment, Mike is reluctant to jump to grand conclusions about his little discovery and secretly transmits a response to the signal. Pointless, he knows, even if it was from intelligent life, it would take thousands of years for his response to reach them and thousands more for them to reply. But when he does receive a response just hours later, his scientific understanding and that of his fellow scientists is shaken. Could this be genuine? Is there more to decipher from the message? How could a reply come so quickly? Before long, the team face the challenge of documenting their discovery, proving its authenticity, and sharing it with the world before it is lost forever. 3 astronomers may have just inadvertently discovered across mankind's greatest discovery, the proof of alien life. Okay, so here's the thing. First off, I think I may make this decision on my own, I don't know, but we normally have a movie on field day that we watch, and I'm not sure if that's going to work for us or not. So I'm thinking that maybe what we'll do is continue with our normal pattern, and we will just simply discuss the movie like we normally would. So the only thing is that might tie up the repeater late at night, but most people aren't doing anything on the repeater late at night, just doing their stuff. So probably what we'll do is our regular movie. I will change the list of movies to reflect that. If anybody has any ideas about what they would like to do on Field Day, which is 2 weeks from tonight, let me know. If you want to do the watch-along party or something like that at midnight, that's up to you, or we can just simply do the review. Think about it or send me a note. Okay, I will now take check-ins. Anybody who'd like to join us this evening? And This would be let me know your call sign, your name, let me know where you're transmitting from, and let me know, did you see Cosmos with a C from, I guess, 2019. Please come down.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Bill in Irving. Yes, I saw it.
November 5, Sierra, Quebec Alpha, Ron, beautiful downtown Dallas. I did not see that, but today I watched the second half of The Empire Strikes Back.
T9V, Michael in Plano, and I'm about 3/4 of the way through it. I need to start earlier than I've been starting. Well, next week will be better because we're only doing testing 3 nights a week instead of 6. Anyway, and people talk on the repeater during... I'll shut up.
This is Delhi B5OZL. Name is Brenda. I'm in DeSoto, and I did see this movie.
Oh, hold on. Whiskey 5, Echo Bravo, Bravo. David in Dallas. Yes, I saw the movie, and the Mandela effect. Darth Vader did not say, Luke, I'm your father. He said, no, I am your great uncle. W5EBB.
Are you sure he wasn't just an average uncle? WT9.
Oh my. All right, let me get these folks checked in, such as they are. I got N5VV, Irving. Yep, he saw it. N5SQA, Ron in Dallas. No, he did not see it. But he finally, after 40 years, saw the second part of Empire Strikes Back. I hope it was worth the wait. But yeah, it's a good movie. It's the best of the Star Wars series, if you want my opinion. And you don't. WT9V, that's Michael in Plano. Yep, he saw it, most of it, 3/4 of the way through. Better hurry up, there's an ending to it. WB5OZL, Miss Brenda DeSoto. Yep, she saw it. W5EBB, David in Dallas. He also saw it. Anyone else? And I'm going to bug Echolink after that. Anyone over here? Please come now. Did you see? Please come with your call sign, name, and location. And did you see the movie Cosmos from 2019 about the 3 astronomers? Please come now. Usually they're stragglers simply because, it's one of these things where people come up with ideas and then later on, they have ideas to glob onto the first ideas and then they sound brilliant while the rest of us are fumbling around trying to say something about the movie because we're first. I know that. I know what goes on. I know what you're doing. Some of you are sitting there holding your microphone going, do I want to check in on the first round, or do I want to wait and see what people do? It's always a good question, because you never know. Okay, let's see now. What should I do? Should I do these in order? Should I do them in reverse order? What should I do? I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it in reverse order. So I'm going to start with David, W5EBB. David, tell us, what did you think? In this case, we're going to be talking about the plot to Cosmos from KE5ICX. Go ahead, David.
Okay, I'm here. I was downstairs watching some of the credits because I wanted to see if they actually had an editor for this movie, because it was about 30 minutes at least too long. So there was an editor. They also did the sound mix and something called grade, which I don't know what that is. But the downside is the editor was also the visual design credit went to him. So that's a problem. They will want to put so much of their images and scenes into the movie that really are not required. So working in reverse, the plot, the last 20 minutes or so was just, it kind of destroyed the climax of the movie, which actually happened about 20 minutes before. But instead, we get this long, they're rushing in their car to get the stuff into the computer before the battery dies, and it just turned into like this ridiculous, chase scene almost, and it kind of nullified the climax, and I didn't, they needed a real editor for the movie. But in general, like the opening scene looks exactly like something out of E.T., and that's kind of the general nature of this movie. Is it draws on bits and pieces from Contact and E.T. and scores of other movies, but it doesn't really have particular originality, I guess. And there's some other aspects of the details of the special effects which didn't really coincide with what they were saying in the plot, but we'll get to that later. But it was kind of convoluted and ultimately too long. W5 EBB.
All right, thank you, David. I have a tendency to agree with you. I think I forgot to ask the Echolink people if they wanted to check in. I'm trying to get their attention in chat, but they may not see that. So unless I just don't remember, I'll go ahead and ask for Echolink check-ins. Anyone on the Echolink who would like to check in, please come now with your call sign name. Location, did you see the movie? Please come now. Alright, they may be lurking. Okay, that may be why I didn't get a response. So I'm going to go back up the list. WB5OZL, Miss Brenda, your plot on this film. Please go ahead from KE5ICX.
This is WB5OZL. This movie took 5 years to produce. I hope they sent some sandwiches to those 3 guys sitting in that car for 5 years. Frankly, I got a little claustrophobic. I kind of wish they'd had a little bit bigger car because they're sitting there cramped up for hours and hours, well, years. Anyway, the plot. I enjoyed this movie a lot. I did in the beginning. I thought, man, these people are just hateful and boring, and maybe somebody will die. But as it developed, it was very heartwarming as their relationships evolved, and you learned a lot about their characters and what they were doing. And to me, it was kind of amazing how they could just use this dialogue and keep me riveted. I have a short attention span. So I thought the story was satisfying in the end. We got good resolution other than just like, we don't know what's going on. And you're happy for them with their success. And I just think despite its depressing beginning, I think it's an overall feel-good movie. It's hard to talk about plot holes because, it's a really unique and different kind of plot story. One thing I wasn't happy about is they were listening to this voice saying words that you couldn't make out. And I thought they were going to end up talking to the aliens, and they didn't. And it's a little bit disappointed in that. When I make first contact with aliens, we'll be talking. WB50ZL, back to net.
Thank you, Brenda. Okay. Next up is Michael, WT9V. What did you think of the plot from KE5I6?
Well, it was there. I haven't gotten to the point where the movie's too long yet, so I'm waiting for that. I did want to bring up a point of order, Tom. If we're going in reverse order and net control normally goes last, then shouldn't you have gone first? Okay, that's kind of a rhetorical question, but Brenda, I don't think they were actually in the car for the entire 5 years. Just saying. And I don't know, some of the I don't really have much in the way of comments about the plot, so I'll just make my normal snarky comments. Who parks and leaves their headlights on all night long? And based on the brightness of those taillights, it looked like somebody had their foot on the brake the entire time, which is a little strange. Most hard drives have covers, although I did take one off one time and have a friend machine out a piece of plexiglass, and we clamped that on there, and I left that on my desk running and used it. It was only 5 megs, but, it was an amusing thing to have on one's desk. And like so many movies, pretty much all of them, anything to do with the computer was painful to anybody that knows anything about computers. So, bleh. But other than that, I'm getting texts from our errant net control person who says he feels really bad about having forgotten, but he promises not to buy another house anytime soon. WT9V.
Thank you, Michael. Well, you know what? I get to assign the movies, so it could be something really horrible that he has to keep the audience awake for. You never know. Okay, next is, if he's still there, I got N5SQA, Ron. Since you didn't see the movie, you can tell us about Empire Strikes Back. Why did you wait 40 years to see Part 2 from KE5I6?
Okay, Tom, you must not have noticed my comment on Echolink, where I point out that this today was like easily the 5th or 6th time I've seen this movie and the whole series and all that jazz. It just happened. We recently picked up a subscription to the Disney Plus, and it just kind of happened. We watched the first half last night and cleared it up today, and we'll watch Return of the Jedi in the next couple of days. It sounds like this Cosmos movie wouldn't hold my interest, so I can't make any other further comments about it. Have a good one. Keep breathing on your own and wash your hands. N5SQA.
Well, Ron, it's available on Netflix. It's also available for free on something else. I don't know where it is. So you can watch it along with your Disney Plus and all that stuff. So, yeah. Well, Empire's still the best of all the movies by far. Best score too. This John Williams. Most, I think, for the Star Wars stuff was the best. But that's me. All right, Bill. You thought you were going to go first. But you get to use the wisdom of everyone else and tell them they're wrong, or they're right, or they thought of it later than you did. I don't know. But you're in the unique position of being able to bring comment on comments and bring your own comments from it. So N5BB, you're next from KE5ICX.
Okay, Tom, this is N5BB. Looking around, I saw some online comments that some people liked this movie. I would not use that term. David said that it seemed awfully slow at the end. What he meant was the last quarter of the movie was a nothing burger. But again, the first quarter of the movie was a nothing burger. And the middle of the movie was a nearly nothing burger that was repeated over and over and over again. It didn't go anywhere. It was the same, just aggravation and weird listening to the radio over and over again. So, I don't like the movie. What I don't like is that it was stretched out to fill, what was it, 2 hours and some odd minutes, and there was very little content in it. So let's think about the budget. Let's think about the locations. There were no inside shots except inside that one car. The outside shots were in some forest. You couldn't even see more than 100 feet. So they could have shot the darn thing anywhere or any multiple places. And you saw a few shots of the sky, but you couldn't see much. And so, at the end of the movie, they probably used green screen or something to put those dishes behind them, because that had nothing to do with the rest of the movie. So I see a very apparently low budget thing. It took them 5 years to do it. Well, that might have been from design concept to the 4.5 years it took for them to get somebody to fund it, to the 3 days it took them to film it. I don't know. There were so many things in the movie that annoyed me. What? Just crazy. So let me see some of them. Reading you 10 squared. What the heck does that do on the little FRS radios? Reading you 10 squared. And where were they, by the way? Were they in the U.S.? Were they in Europe and Great Britain or something? I was a little unsure where they were because of different comments they made. There's many other things that were so annoying. Here's a quote. Binary is never random. Binary is never random. Meaningless, wrong. And then he said about binary, no translation is required on binary. No translation is required. Also meaningless. Just has no meaning. The phrase just can't be deciphered. They took one little fact from Wikipedia that at Arecibo they had transmitted 1,679 bits with that image, which they did show. But what they didn't say is that Arecibo was transmitting at 2,380 megahertz, which was not 21 centimeters, 1,420 megahertz that they were listening to. So that made no sense. When he was tuning around, he was tuning to the 900 megahertz cell phone band and ISM band, where there's all kinds of other stuff. What the heck did that have to do with astronomical listening? The other thing that annoyed me just greatly is that you noticed the optical telescope, when he was trying to follow something, was tracking very rapidly, so rapidly that the object they were tracking must have been a bird flying overhead at 50 feet or something. Could have been something in low Earth orbit or further, but it was just going all over the place and making noise doing it. They did not show that little RF dish moving. And then here's the key problem. Where were they pointing? Where were they pointing? He calls the other guys at the observatory and tells them to listen. He doesn't tell them where to listen. He says the frequency, but not the direction. Well, let me tell you something. Even that little small dish has a comparatively small pattern. You'd be searching all over the sky for something with a pattern that tight, trying to find something. He didn't bother telling them, and they didn't care what direction it was. And by the way, the Earth is turning, and they were out there supposedly for hours during this movie. And don't you think they would have had to slew to follow something that was away from the Earth? But no, it was something that was closer. How close? They didn't say. How big did it appear up there? It's not really clear, although they kind of unzoomed on their image. So he acted like it was, 300 feet in diameter or something like that, maybe 100 meters in diameter. But how far was it above them? Was it hovering above them? Why did they happen to point to it? They could have pointed the antenna anywhere else. Makes no difference at all. Makes no sense at all. Just silly, silly, silly. And it was already repeated before. His garbled voice that was repeated back, to me, was done very badly. It didn't sound like him. It was just some garbled version of his voice. What the heck was going on there? And as Michael said, anything involved in the computers or the radio or anything technical was all botched up. Made no sense. The part of it that maddened me pretty much the most was at the end, when they got some other battery there, and they get out the jumper cables, and he runs the jumper cables against each other so it made a spark. Not a good idea, especially when you're trying to charge up your device. You're trying to jump it. Why do you make a spark? It's dangerous. Anyway, so many stupid things that I was in pain watching this movie. In fact, BB.
All right, thank you, Bill. Yeah, well, you make a lot of good points. I don't disagree with any of that. Let me see. Who else is out there? Anybody else out there before I make comments? We're talking about the movie Cosmos from 2019, I'm told. Art house film, small, low-budget movie that was made last year. Please come now. I don't disagree with anything anybody's saying. I don't know. It's slow. There's no two ways about it. I would agree that probably about 20 minutes less would have been fine. A 90-minute film, I think this one was just ranked in at 2 hours. And most of these tropes have been done in other films, and everybody's named them. Everything from Contact to Close Encounters of the Third Kind to I'm trying to remember some of the films. I'm getting a little tired today. I had my nap, but not as long as I normally do. But so, yeah. Let me think for a sec. Let me go into some of the problems I had with the film as far as the plot goes. And maybe this falls into technical, maybe not. But one of the things that I thought was somewhat ludicrous is always the dreaded fourth or fifth act, which is what you usually have in television, or the final act. How are you going to make this thing work out? They have the discovery. Isn't it pretty simple? Just pick up the phone, make the phone call, take your thing in and hand it to the people, and then they got it, right? Well, the thing about it is this, their batteries are running out on their computers or something, and they're going to lose the data because it's not backed up on anything physical. It's in memory. Wouldn't you, when you like turn on the car and there's a generator in the car and all those computers probably have some sort of inverter or something, or direct power supply, I don't know, you should be able to keep it going. I mean, the car generates its own power. And so driving around on the wrong side of the road the entire way, which suggests to me they were in Britain, made you wonder what's going on and why this was such a big deal. And driving around all over the place made it exciting, and going through red lights and everything. I found that distracting in the end. If this were an episode of The Twilight Zone, which it kind of sounded like, it should have ended with them losing all the data, but then maybe not. Maybe the spacecraft lands or something and takes them on board. Not the cookbook one. This would be the one where they don't get eaten. And they go up in the spaceship and they leave all their stuff behind, and maybe somebody finds it. Maybe it's a farmer. Farmer finds it. That'd be fine, you know. And he doesn't know what to do with it, so he uses it for family photos or something. I don't know, and destroys everything accidentally. It needed a twist ending, something ironic that even the ironic people wouldn't quite get. I think that would have worked. The story at the end was this straightforward thing. I got to get, you know, French Connection thing, where you got to get to someplace. You got to get to the great whatever his name was. It was the Frenchman. To capture him and driving through traffic and all that. So I guess the ending is more like French Connection. It's just kind of, I don't know. Now, as far as we'll get into characterization. I kind of liked that part more than anything about the film. That the story, you know, it's been done before. It's sort of like last week where you had the same thing happen and you kind of steal. But what you got to do if you're going to do that is you got to create something unique, something unusual, something that will make this movie stand out. It didn't quite have that. It was still enjoyable. I liked it. I thought the characters were quite interesting. I liked them. But I just, the whole thing was kind of, we've been here and done that before. I'll get into the technical aspects later, which I think Bill alluded to a little bit, but in any case. All right, that's my comment. Anyone else want to check in? Please come now. Okay, it's going to be one of those nights, no problem. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is characterization. We only have, 3 characters to spend the evening with, and 2 other characters that don't know how to point a telescope. So we'll start with David, W5EVB. Your thoughts on characterization on this film? We're talking about Cosmos from 2019. Go ahead, David, from KE5ICX.
Well, thanks, Tom. Well, the characters were likable, you know, for the most part. You know, they were well established in their background, and the missed opportunities and you know, the defeats, and then this was going to be their grand success that they would share if they could just get that, keep that memory from getting erased and get to the site at the end on time. And I think Bill, you know, pretty much summed it up as a double, even triple nothing burger. but the premise at the end that, you know, they're trying to get there so that they can have the prestige of proving that they found it first. Is that like going to give them, you know, merchandising, plush toy rights, you know, for for retail or something, that they can license this stuff because they found it first? You know, what's the purpose of them actually proving that they found it first? You know, they didn't want, you know, to turn into like a Post-it note inventor kind of a controversy. I guess that makes sense. But you know, shouldn't the premise have been the glory of actually making first contact, period. But no, they want to prove that they found them first. And that seems a little arrogant and selfish in my opinion. But that was supposed to be, we're supposed to be rooting for them, but I wasn't rooting for them. But the characterization was okay. W5EBB.
Yes, the selfishness part. Well, okay, yeah. Well, that's, I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. WB50ZL, Miss Brenda, your thoughts on characterization. Go ahead, from KE5ICX.
WB50ZL. Well, I thought they got the whole geek thing down pretty well. I just know so many people like these guys. And what fascinated me is how they grew to be friends or get over grievances. And, they talk about the pain of losing a job that's everything. Those of us that have been through that understand that. That is very, very painful. And I think they conveyed that part pretty well. In the beginning, I didn't like the characters because they were kind of bickering. But time went on. They did kind of pander a bit. They all wore the hat, right? This male bonding thing. I thought, oh, hit us in the face with that, why don't you? To show how they're all bonding. And then drinking out of the same cup, that too. It's like, we're having communion here. I thought that was a little bit overplayed, but, oh well. On the whole, I enjoyed it. WB50ZL.
All right, thank you, Brenda, and thank you for your comments. I thought they started out as the Bickerson types, and then after that, I guess they kind of grew on me. And you're right about the job loss thing. I kind of felt the same way. All right, I'm going to depart from protocol here, and I see Billy mentioned she tried to check in, so I'm going to make her next. So she will be in slot 2A, Billy. So we're on characterization, but Billy, let us know, did you see the movie, which was Cosmos from 2019, about the three amateur astronomers? And if you did, tell us about what you thought about the plot and characterization. So you're next. That would be KF5PDS from KE5ICX. Go ahead.
Tom, and good evening, everyone. Yes, I did see the film. I watched it last night, and I did feel like it was a tad long, maybe by about 20, 25 minutes. I think they could have done a better, more compact job, because there were times when I was starting to lose focus, but right about the time I was starting to lose focus and attention, they would bring me back in with some development. So they did a good job. They almost stretched it too long for me. And I agree that there are all kinds of holes all over it, but I think for those that are maybe not as techy and can, if they're engaged and want to watch the film, then by all means, I think it's great entertainment. I enjoyed the three characters. I like the fact that they were kind of crammed into this vehicle because, the one guy, Mike Webster, he's struggling to get funding. And he's trying, I think that's the reason he wanted to make sure he was in there first, because he wanted to be sure that he got fully funded for his render program, which he was struggling to get funding for. So I think if he was able to show that he got in there first with the program that he wrote and detected them first, that would give him further funding for his program that he was writing. And I like the fact that they were all crammed into the vehicle because they were struggling. At one point you think, why don't they have this big humongoid trailer and, sit in there in comfort and everything? But the whole fact that they are crammed into this SUV, it shows, you find out that the two other scientists have, gotten fired. They don't have a job, and they're still doing this for the love of doing it, to keep track of the satellite, that the one man, helped build, and he wasn't even allowed to go to the launch of his own vehicle. How painful is that? That was really, to me, I was just really saddened by that. You know, you spend years working on a satellite, and then you don't even get to go see it launch, but Mike did, you know, and he told him that he was able to go see it and how wonderful it was, so it was great that he could kind of share that with the other engineer who didn't get to go to the launch of his own vehicle. There's all kinds of pain and sadness going on, and the fact that they're crammed into this little, well, it's not a little SUV, but they've got a lot crammed into it. And, you know, I think that's probably pretty true to life. It's like astronomers in the field, they do spend a large part of the time just sitting and waiting and watching and not a lot going on. So I think that part was probably pretty realistic. It's not always drama, and every minute they're discovering something. There's a lot of countless hours of watching and waiting and not finding things. So I think that lent, you know, to the film. I like the fact that they had to kind of struggle to get to trust one another and finally find some common ground. You know, the passion of astronomy is their common bond. And the fact that they were able to pull together in the name of science to help one scientist who still was in the game, so to speak, and had a stake in things, and to make his discovery real, I think that was really awesome. Also, yeah, there were definitely things I kept screaming at the main guy, record, and he didn't record until one of the other guys says, maybe you should record this, and then he's like, oh, okay. And then he does it. I had been screaming at him for like 30 minutes. It's like as soon as he just it's like, why isn't he recording? Record this. That was the frustrating part. Another frustrating part with the plot was here he is the radio astronomer, but yet the other two scientists are explaining radio astronomy to him a large portion of the time, which I thought was kind of bad. So I was like, it should be the radio astronomer explaining the stuff to the other two guys, not the other two guys explaining how things are working and rates of transmission to the radio astronomer, you know. So that part kind of got under my skin. But I did like that it just at the end, I was kind of sad to not see any aliens, but I think it's cool that it led us right up to that moment. It's just everything that transpired to get us to that moment. Which means, are they going to do a sequel? Who knows? But hope not. I like where they left it. They left us right contact and right at the promise and hope, and you could just see it in their faces. You know, I thought that was just really a neat place to leave it. So rather than go through the whole creating aliens and interaction with aliens, it's the human journey right up to the point of first contact, which I really enjoyed. So although there were a lot of plot holes, as other people pointed out, and a lot of inaccuracies, as other people pointed out, I did like the Arecibo kind of twist at the end where you think they're beaming back the actual picture, the same one, but it's just enough different to let you know, hey, this is a response, and I loved that part. That was something I really dug. So I would watch it again. I might have a little bit of time to process, but that's a film I'd probably go back and rewatch again to see if I could find any other Easter egg information that I didn't pick up the first time. So anyway, with that, I'll return it to you, Tom, and I'll reserve comments for the next round. So this is KF5 PDS. Back to Nat.
Do what?
All right, thank you, Billy. And I think all good points. And yeah, well, I'll make my comments in a little bit. WT9V, Michael. Characterizations. This is right down your alley. Tell us, what do you think about the characters from KE5ICX?
My alley? Wait, when did my alley? Wait, I think you're confusing that with somebody else's alley. I did like Roy and the way he kind of, you know, finally came around and decided that he was going to be less of a grump. But not so much this, but in the plot that David mentioned. I mean, history is rife, I say, with competition between scientists. I mean, just like for people that discovered elements, got to name them, so their names went down in history. The number 2 person, sometimes people remember them, but usually not. This is the same sort of thing, ish. That, people that discover things up in the sky get the first dibs on naming those things. So, I can totally understand why they wanted to be first, not just, to get funding, but that's where you get your name in the history books forever. Well, until there aren't any history books anymore and the hard drives get erased. Know what I mean. The other guy, who I can't remember his name, the front seat guy, didn't really do much for me. And the mic guy was kind of interesting, but not terribly interesting. I like the movie. I don't like it enough to keep watching it, even though I've still got 30 minutes. So apparently I've got 10 minutes more before it becomes 20 minutes too long. WT9V.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, well, you're right about that. As far as going forward and doing, making the discoveries, and you added something. I put a little asterisk next to your name about naming stuff because I have something to say about that. All right, next would be Ron. I think he said his adieu, but he may still be there. I'll ask. If I don't hear anything, I know that he's done for the evening. But N5SQA, Ron, you got anything for us as we move down the list? You would normally be next from KE5ICX. All right, I was pretty sure that he said his adieu on the last round, but I wasn't for sure. N5BB, Bill, tell us about characterization. Tell us how much you like Ron and the other guy. I can't think of his name. I don't know. Roy was the guy. But go ahead. Your comments on characterization from KE5ICX.
This is N5BB. Well, I guess the characters were okay. I didn't dislike them. Of course, one of the guys was very standoffish in the first part of the movie, but then he turned around completely at the end. They bonded, including with the other guy they met at the very end after the fast car trip, and they put on those hats, which I thought they were going to say "Make America Great Again" or something, but no, they were the astronauts. And, when I saw them doing that, I thought, oh man, it's field day. We have all got those fluorescent yellow-green Dallas Amateur Radio Club hats on, and we're uber nerds with our piles of cables. Did you notice the big pile of jumbled up cables? Etc., etc. So they played the nerdy guys okay. As I said earlier with the plot, I thought they got much of the details back just horribly. It didn't look to me like anybody familiar with the science of it had written it. Looked like an outsider to me. I was not, as far as the characters, I wasn't convinced. This is part of the plot and part of the characters. I wasn't convinced that they had any knowledge of how to figure out whether something coming from space on their computer screen was terrestrial or extraterrestrial. I wasn't convinced of that. I didn't really feel they had the brains to figure that out. They were kind of bumbling guys. They were amateurs. But anyway,
I guess that's about it. I would like to put as a character the woods. As I mentioned earlier, you had very few there's very few location things in the movie, and you had the car and you had the woods, and then you had when they drove back over to town. That's all there was, and the woods was the big kind of character in it. Did you notice they were wandering around in the woods? They actually showed their feet squashing on the ground. They had heard the owls hooting and the birds, and they were kind of scared. And I don't know, something about that. I thought they overplayed it greatly. So that part of the characterization kind of confused me. Why were these guys getting spooked every time there was a rustle in the woods? They should have been a little bit more brave. Inside BB.
All right, thank you, Bill. Well, yeah, I guess. I don't know. Our main characters are Mike, Harry, and Roy. Yeah, I had to look them up again. Roy was the one that didn't want to talk until the end, then we couldn't shut him up. But I think here's a quote from Roy that I thought was interesting, and it comes from one of the IMDb. He says, "I figure there's two types of scientists, Mike. Those that look down at the Earth trying to figure out what's going on here, and then there's those who look up into space searching for the answers out there. But they're both really looking for the same thing. Who are we? What are we? What does this all mean?" I seem to remember that. I know what that line was. I just realized what the line was from. It's from Star Trek, the motion picture. I think that was the influence. As far as the characters themselves, I didn't mind them. I think that they were again, it was a little long, and then you got to have the character study. But you got to remember, this is a film with no budget. There's nothing there, so you end up doing what's actually a stage work piece. In this case, everything is done inside the car for the most part. There's a few scenes here and there, and they mentioned that they had at any given time maybe 3 people, including the director and the photographer, and then one of the actors running through some of the scenes. That's it. There's not a huge set of people, so you have to build it on your characterizations and your characters, which I think did an okay job. I didn't mind them. We've seen films, even professionally done films, where the acting was not very good. I think that the actors in this case, I think, did fairly good job through the whole thing. They were convincing. So, of course, you got the whole thing, too, where they start, splitting off. Well, you know what happens when people split off. Bad things happen, and there's conversation. I think that, if there could have been a little more of a tension in that, more like what you would find in X-Files or something like that, where they're talking to each other on the radios, and yet they don't seem to be as concerned as they might have been. I don't know. That's an acting thing, I suppose. I'm trying to figure out what went wrong with the film, outside of it being way too long. I guess I liked it. I probably will watch it again. I've seen this film 2 times now. I came across it and then a few weeks ago, and then added it to the list. I thought it might be an interesting discussion piece here on this net. So I didn't mind it. I managed to sit through the whole thing without falling asleep, and that's pretty good for me because I fall asleep in movies that I don't particularly care about. Now, one thing I will mention that was brought up earlier, I think, who was it brought it up? I think it was Michael. He was talking about, you get to name satellites, you get to name planets when you discover them, comets when you get to discover them, other objects, moons, you name it, something as a discoverer, and it hasn't previously been known, you get to pick it. You get to pick the name. So I'm thinking, since this has never been done before, intelligent life, do you get to name the intelligent life? Because if you do, that'd be kind of fun. I was thinking you could call them the Care Bears, or the Banana Splitzoids, or something like that. You know, a name that, you know, they're going to have a different language anyway. They may be really happy that you picked something interesting and not know the proper pronunciation. You could do Pig Latin maybe. I don't know. But if you had an opportunity to go ahead and name the aliens, and then that's their name from this point forward, you know, Zork, or I don't know. I think it would be a lot of fun. Care Bears. Okay, let me see. Anybody else want to check in? We're at actually the top of the list. Anybody else want to check in? Please come down.
Kilo 5, Echo, Victor, Sierra. Eric Richardson, I'm late, but I'm here.
All right, I put you on the list. You're now number 6 or 7. 6, I guess. Eric, did you see the movie? This one is Cosmos from 2019. We talked about the plot and characterization, so if you want to put those two things together, if you did see the film, which I guess I should ask first, did you see the movie?
I saw an hour and 30 some odd minutes of it. I didn't really enjoy this one very much. It was really slow for me. I don't have a whole lot other than that to say, but I wanted to say hi to everybody. Back to net.
All right, Eric. Well, we're getting to the easy part where you can talk about the special effects or anything else for that matter. So that may be our final round. It's kind of we're all pooping out on this one. But you never know. Sometimes there's a second life when somebody says something really important like squirrel. And then everybody just looks that way and comes to an inspiration, and then the thing goes until 12:30, which has happened on some of the absolute worst movies we've ever watched. Somebody says something intelligent or something that suddenly grabs somebody's mental fortitude and comes up with something really amazing. Most of the time that's not the case, but it can happen, just like a monkeys could write a, Shakespearean play. It sometimes happens. Okay, so let's go to the bottom of the list, which is the top of the list tonight, and we'll start with David. David, go ahead. We can do special effects or anything else you want to talk about on this film, because I think that's going to be the final round. But you never know. W5EVV from KE5ICX. Whatever you want to say about this movie, go right ahead from KE5ICX.
Well, thanks, Tom. I've jotted down a few random notes on this generic Post-it note. This movie just really could have used a technical advisor. Just pay a consultant, someone who has taken algebra, to maybe add some technical advice to add to this movie. For example, the coded message is 1,679 binary digits. And the actor, though, says the message is 73 wide by 21 digits. No, that's 1,533. Now, it's not 73 wide. If you were persnickety enough to actually look at it on screen, as I was, it's actually 23 wide by 73 vertical, which is 1,679. So, what he said did not match what they're actually showing in the low-res, highly pixelated graphics. Now, those were interesting graphics, though, and you do wonder if we really sent that message out, how much information that is actually conveying to, would-be aliens that are out there. Let me reset. So we see the stick figure in the message we send, which is, of a human with about 2 vertical lines for the torso. And in what we get back, we see a similar-looking figure, but it only has a single line for the torso looking sort of like a praying mantis. And you do wonder if maybe the aliens didn't take what we sent them in that picture. Maybe that was their favorite food source. And that's why they decided to come here. Who knows? Now, other movies that this reminded me of was Arrival, The Three Musketeers, and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, the mine cart chase scene, very similar to the ending of this movie, except substitute an SUV for the mine cart. W5EBB.
Kilo Golf 5 Zulu India X-ray. It's a cookbook.
No, it can't be a cookbook. We already knew that. They didn't eat well, they might have. Well, you never know. What was it, Roy Sinist or whoever the hell it was that ended up in the spaceship? Oh, that breaks. The Kilo Golf 5 Zulu. Give me your call sign again.
I didn't quite understand that transmission. Come back.
Oh, I was asking the breaking station. That would be you. Your call sign again. I was trying to be funny, but I failed.
Phil, I was almost asleep and I turned the radio back on and I heard you guys talking about that and I thought, well, that reminds me of the Twilight Zone, the thing about it's a cookbook. Kilo Golf 5 Zulu India X-ray. Joe and Wiley.
Okay, Joe, good. I got you. KG5Z. Well, you're welcome anytime. And if we woke you up, we're sorry. We'll speak more softly on the radio next time. Yeah, we mentioned that. Actually, it came up as in the first round. We were talking about plot and mentioned how they it's a bunch of other science fiction movies and television shows plot, so they've been well-treaded ground. And yeah, it came to my thought too. And maybe it should have been a cookbook, but you needed that ending to go along with it. Let's see. Now I'm lost. Where am I in everything? I got. Let's see. I've got David's done. So I think it's Brenda, WB5OZL. Brenda in DeSoto. Please tell us anything you want about this movie. Please go ahead from KE5ICX.
Did you skip Michael?
No, because you're before I am.
Okay, it's late. This is WB5OZL. Special effects, there just wasn't much. The spaceship was just so light. What a cop-out. And they did a lot of the, let's roam in the woods and get spooked by the owl. I thought that was kind of cheap. One thing that I didn't buy was that little bonding scene where they were singing that stupid folk song. I looked it up. That's a song called Uncle Rat, sung by, it's recorded in 1939 by Charles Fulton. You can find a copy of it in the Library of Congress, and you can listen to it. I don't know that you'll be singing along with it like they were. Of all the scientists and engineers and technicians and geeks I have known in my life, there have been a lot. I can't imagine any of them just breaking out into the song like that. It's just so unlikely. So, well, that's about all I have to say. I'm going to turn it back. WB5OZL.
All right, Brenda. Well, I got news for you. As you know, my buddy who is my buddy? I can't even think of his name right now. I'm getting tired. Ron at the museum. The first time I said, we're like two peas in a pod, duh. He said two peas in a pod, duh, exactly the same time. And I said, do you know that movie? That's Blockheads with Laurel and Hardy. He says, oh yeah. Well, that's from 1937. So why not? It could happen. It's highly unlikely. I mean, these people are half my age, but it could happen. All right, let's see here. Next up is Miss Billy, KFI-PDS. Miss Billy, tell us anything you want about this movie. Its scientific accuracy, the magnificent music, the incredible special effects, the lighting, the car itself, whatever you like, from KE5ICX.
Couple things. I was going to bring up that same scene because that scene conjured up an image that reminded me of a scene from the movie Dark Star, where they're all cramped inside of the capsule and they're doing their jobs and they're kind of geeking out to their own music, although it was an instrumental tune in Dark Star. But it reminded me of that scene when they're all cramped into the capsule and doing their job, and they had on this quirky music, and they were just bobbing their heads and just jamming out. And that kind of reminded me of that scene in the car. And I think it was just because Mike, he was just into some really quirky music, almost kind of like somebody be into Dr. Demento, weird songs. I think he just had his weird station that he found on that frequency, and, he was listening to that kind of 50s tune early in the movie. He had his headphones on. He was really just jamming to his tunes. I think it's because he had just scanned the band, and he found this frequency that had this, quirky, odd music, and maybe he deliberately put that song on to try to get everybody singing. Maybe he was trying, that was his kind of, subtle way of trying to get everybody a very hooky, catchy, old folk tune, and maybe that was just his thing. He was into those kind of weird, quirky songs, and he, found that one, or maybe he had that one recorded and he put it on to deliberately try to get everybody to sing along, to try to give them a common bonding moment. It's like, if we don't have anything in common as scientists or people, maybe we can kind of gel over this weird song, So I think maybe he either happened to land on it and then put it on so everybody could hear, or maybe he had it recorded and played it for everybody, just like to try to get them to come together. So, who's to say which is which? But I think, he could have just played it, thought, let me just see if we can get all of this gel into this song. And I was really quirky, and I had that tune in my head for a few hours after the movie was over. I'm like, dang it, now I got that song stuck in my head. To me, it was pretty catchy, and I thought it was kind of fun. But it reminded me of that scene in Dark Star. Yeah, I liked the SUV. Wouldn't mind having a vehicle to do astronomy in like that. And also, I loved the telescope. And I was very sad and irked that they just left it in the middle of the dirt road. It's like, put it behind a tree or a bush or something so you can come back and get it later. I'm sure nobody will be out there, so I doubt anything would happen to it. But still, the fact that he just unceremoniously left it in the middle of the dirt road, I just was kind of irked with that. But I wouldn't mind having that telescope. I thought for a no-budget movie, the production value was very high. We've seen other low-budget films that didn't have as good a production value. So I think it was a pretty slick, polished movie. Even though it was lacking in technical quality, it had, a nice look to it. And yeah, I do agree they should have had a technical writer, technical consultant. If they were to spend any money anywhere, that's where it was needed. But otherwise, I think they came up with a cool, quirky, fun, interesting thought movie. And then they didn't have to employ much special effects, although I think they spent 4 years in post-production, and if I read correctly, 60 days of principal photography. So they didn't have a lot of days of shooting it, but they spent years, I guess, trying to sufficiently get down the road to get it finished, which a lot of movies don't get finished if you don't have a budget. So I thought it had a look to it like it was, not a high-budget film, but a highly budgeted independent film. And then to read that there was no budget, I was quite stunned and impressed by that. So We've seen a lot worse movies that spent a lot more money. So I thought it was, I think overall it was an interesting film. So those are the things I can think of. So I'm also getting tired. So I'll wrap it up and send it back to you, Tom. This is KF5TDS, back to net.
All right, thank you, Billy. Thank you for your comments. You're always a big help because when you put out a lot of material there, and they go, I got something I can talk about now thanks to you. Let's see. Next up is WT9V. That would be Michael. So, Michael, anything you want to say about this movie, go right ahead. Go ahead and vent from KE5ICX.
Did you say vent?
Well, yes, I did.
Well, okay, so I'll start with a minor point. It was pretty clear that they were in Great Britain. The first clue was that they were driving on the wrong side of the road, and then that's where the satellite was going over every time they were looking at it, over Great Britain on the map, maps. It's a thing. And technically, having watched an awful lot of TV from Great Britain, that's not an SUV. It's an estate, as they call it over there, or what we call over here a station wagon, although it's hard to find one in this country anymore. But anyway, I thought the most impressive special effect was the hard drive that they'd taken the cover off of. But they didn't have the budget to make the heads move. WT9V.
That's it? Jeez. Okay, I thought you'd have more on the special effects on the film, but that's okay. Fine. I know Bill's already touched on a few things, but I bet you've got a few more. N5BB, Bill, anything you want to say about this movie, you got it, from KE5ICX.
Okie dokie, this is N5BB. Well, Uncle Rad seems to be in the same general folk area as Froggy Went A-Courting. So I think the tunes are different, and maybe the detailed lyrics are the same, but they're similar. Uncle Rat and Froggy. Froggy's trying to marry a mouse. And I thought that song in the movie was poorly placed. I found that part very boring, and I just did not understand at all why they would be interested in singing along with that thing. Also, where did he happen to pick up music in that area? He wasn't tuning the FM broadcast band. He was tuning up around between the cell phone band and up there in the L band. There's no... He wouldn't be able to tune in music there. I was not convinced at all. I was not convinced. As far as other little props and things, for some reason, they carry out these weird little antennas out into the woods. Didn't look like a realistic antenna to me, just some pipes kind of bolted together. And then he sent them out different directions because the signal gets stronger. There's no technical reason for that. As somebody said, they needed a technical advisor. I did not understand that piece at all. That little weird antenna thing they carried out had a light in it. Maybe it was flashing. I can't remember if it was flashing. It was just a completely made-up prop, meaningless. and they traipse around the wood carrying it for no reason at all. I did not understand that at all. Also, did you notice they're there at 1420 megahertz? And where are they putting all these antennas and carrying them around? Under the trees. You could tell it was heavily wooded. Bad idea. Wrong place to be doing this for that frequency band. Just really, really, really bad. So, I think they had a concept, they threw it together, and then they kind of made up things. I did think that blue rotary hard drive, again, the movie only came out last year. You'd think they'd have a solid-state drive, but that rotary hard drive was stupid. I mean, were they looking at that? Was that some kind of X-ray view of inside of the computer? Who knows? Just like all the characters on the screen they threw on there, like most of these movies, they don't look realistic, especially when there's this warning, battery going down. No device I have ever seen by any manufacturer, anything, looks anything like that. They do these stuff in the movies, and the people doing them they tell somebody technical, hey, I want it to look like this, and the technical guy goes and does it that way. But it's not, the concept wasn't a technical background thing. I don't think anybody involved with SETI was a consultant for this movie, or astronomy, or radio, or computers and batteries going down in computers. Oh my. So, I didn't actively dislike the movie, but as you can tell, it was so goofy, it aggravated me so much that by the end of the movie, I was ready for it to be over. And at the end of the movie, I was so bored, I was kind of fast-forwarding through it, and I noticed there was no dialogue. So I went back, and I went through again, no dialogue. The whole last of the movie, they're just standing there looking around, looking up, and just standing there. What's going on? I don't get it. It's a bright light. I don't get it. That didn't do anything for me in 5BB.
Kilo Golf 5 Zulu India X-ray. Comment?
Joe, you're in perfect sync. Go right ahead. Your comments.
I was just going to tell that girl that I heard earlier about Dr. Demento to possibly look up on Google the song that was called Wet Dreams. It's really a funny song about fish and stuff. And I was fixed to go to bed. I just wanted to try to jump in there and catch that girl before she went to bed or whatever. I don't even know who she was. Anyway, Dr. Demento, there's a song called Wet Dreams that's really funny. And I'll catch you guys later. Y'all can continue on.
W5TXX comment.
No, go ahead, breaking station. Oh, EVS, I think. Maybe Eric? Go ahead.
Don't mean to interrupt y'all's fun tonight. This is Jake, W5TXX, by the way. Just a quick question, more of a query. Is it a rule that every movie that's watched has to be horribly bad? Just wondering. W5TXX, back to you.
Oh, no. They're not all bad. No, we've had good films. In fact, I think the next one we're going to do next week will be a fairly decent one. I haven't mentioned what it is yet. No. We will do do good movies, we'll do bad movies, we'll do something in between. We've seen just about every science fiction movie you can imagine, so we're kind of down into the B and C lists, although we go back and watch A-list stuff from time to time. So, no, we try not to be terrible, because, you know, we don't want to demoralize the folks who check in, but we do like to try some stuff that we've never tried before as well. That's part of it. So, sometimes, like this one, some of the production values aren't bad, and the story wasn't all that bad, but it wasn't as good as, say, an A-list film where they poured millions and millions of dollars into it. So that's kind of what happens. So don't be discouraged. We actually do decent movies more often than you think. Well, more often than we think sometimes.
Sounds good. I just wanted to chime in real quick. I just thought it was funny the last couple of movies that since I've started listening to this, and I've been D-list movies, and I thought it was kind of funny, like y'all were doing the Science Theater 3000 type critiquing. Kind of funny. W5TXX, back to you.
Well, Jake, I'll spring it on everybody now since we're pretty much towards the end of this thing, and that is we'll be doing Star Trek The Voyage Home. Now, there you go. It's an A-list film, very enjoyable. We've never reviewed it before, so that'll be next week's film. At least that's the plan. I got to update it as well tomorrow. But, yeah, so we have good films. That's not a bad film. It's a Star Trek film, but it's kind of fun. You know, fish out of water story and all that. All right, let's see here. Let me go to Eric. I don't know. I've got notes on here. I can't even read them. I think you saw the movie. Eric, K5EVS. What do you got for us? Anything you want. It's wide open on this film. You have the floor from KE5I6.
All right, thank you. Yeah, and we do watch. I actually kind of like the last two movies before this. One was kind of more of a series show. Anyway, I actually enjoyed those. Not a very popular opinion. Whereas this one, I really just had a hard time. It was filmed well. It was. I think it was. It looked good. It looked like, a normal produced movie, for major release. I couldn't make it through this one. Just kind of got bored. So, but it looked good. It was very moody and dark, and I maybe that was part of what I don't know. I'll reset real quick. Anyway, yeah, I just had a hard time with this one, but I look forward to talking about the Star Trek movie. That sounds cool. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got. Sorry, I'm still getting used to when I first came in, it was very slow. I'm getting used to my new call sign, which was assigned today. Like the Simpsons character Troy McClure, you might know me from such call signs as KI5ISI. K5EVS, back to that.
All right, excellent, Jake, and thanks for coming back, and nice call sign, I like it. Okay. My comments on anything and everything. Okay, one of the things that I do, or what I've been forced into doing, is doing video and audio stuff. And I tell you what, it's a lot harder than it looks, and when you look at it, you go, did I put that POS out? And you have to admit to yourself you did. But it's difficult to make a movie look like a movie. And not like some sort of amateur 8mm production that you may have done when you were in school, which I did do. So you have to be disciplined. You got to be focused, and it takes a hell of a long time to do it. So post-production, fix it in post. That's what they always say. You got to fix it in post. So something that doesn't look right or isn't quite right, but you got to move on to the next thing while you're filming, that does happen. Happens to me all the time. One of the most difficult things, and somebody mentioned it, was production value. And video and audio are very, very important. Audio, I think, is probably more important than even the video. Some of our 50s movies that were low budget look low budget because more not from where they're filming, which is usually on location, and they have a room that's got 4 walls in it, and they just go ahead and film with a boom mic or some sort of overhead mic or something, and it pulls the echo of the room in, and you know instantly. It's like the telephone number, you know, the 555-1212 is the phone number to the villain. Everybody knows that's a fake number. Well, when you hear the echo in the room, you go, everybody knows this is mic'd poorly or has echoes or something is going on with it. This movie did not have that. They may have done a lot of voiceovers, possibly because they're using what looks like a car or a estate, as was mentioned. I think that overall production value was quite good for the film. I really do. I think that it looks good. It felt like a real movie. The biggest thing you noticed is there's nobody in it. There's just 3 guys.
Elvis has left the building.
Just to remind everybody, when you hear that, it means that we're on the 3-minute curfew, which means you've got to let up on the push to talk every less than 3 minutes. At any rate, so I thought that overall looked pretty good. Yeah, computers sucked as far as what they did and how they did it, and I thought that the hard drive thing was just simply, this is what would be on the inside if you saw it. So I didn't mind it so much. I thought it was okay. I don't know. So lighting and everything, there's a little director's comments on one of the websites here, and they did everything with practically nothing. For some of the dolly shots, they used a wheelchair to move the camera back and forth in and out of shot. So they're doing that. The person who did the music did 90 minutes worth of music, which really wasn't all that bad. I thought that was pretty good. And they used, for lighting, they used iPads for lighting of all things. I don't know how they went about doing that, but they did. Probably inside the car or the estate. So I'll tell you this. I wish to hell I had something that looked 1/10 as good as what their movie did and sounded 1/100th as good. And I would be a very, very happy person. So it's a lot harder than it looks in any 2-hour movie or a 5-minute video. Don't take 5 minutes or 2 hours to make. In fact, neither the 5-minute video nor the 2-hour movie takes 2 hours to do. It takes longer. It always does. All right, that's it for me. Does anybody have any additional comments they want to make about anything at all? Because this is it. If you got something, please come now with your call sign.
W5EBB.
WT9V.
K5EBS.
Size PDS.
Wow, that's pretty good. I got 4. I got W5EBB, I got WT9V, I got K5EBS, and K5PDS. Now remember, you're going to have to drop carrier now because we don't have we're now back on regular repeater, and it will shut us down at 3 minutes. So we'll start with W5EBB. David, go ahead.
Add one more movie to the list that this sort of copied from, perhaps, intentionally or unintentionally. Sheriff Brody, Quint, Hooper, sitting around a small table singing a song. Show me the way to go home. W5EBB.
I will not accept your earworm and substitute it for my own. Indian love call. Okay, WT9V. Michael, what do you have for us? Go ahead.
You really forget who I was for a moment there? Really? Seriously? Fine. Be that way. I wasn't actually going to say anything about this movie. I was just going to say that previously I was going to compliment Eric on his new call sign, but then he went and did that himself, so I don't really have anything else to say about it other than congratulations, Eric. WT9V.
I see. Okay. Okay. K5EVS. That's Eric. Go ahead. Your comments.
Well, it started off as a question for you, Tom, but I think the story came out after you picked the movie. But I remember seeing a story this week about radio signals from space being heard, and how it's only the second time that a repeating signal has been observed. And I thought that the timing of, this movie where they're, tuning into the signals and that's how they are making their contact, I thought that was really interesting. I just wanted to note that. Also, thank you, WT9V, for helping me out with that. Back to net.
Yes. They're called FRBs, fast radio bursts, and they did find one that repeats every 100 and something days. So there's other ones every 16 days. These are starting to be showing up, and they're not sure what they are. They think they are of natural origins, although there's always the possibility they could be artificial. Wouldn't we love it if they were? Or maybe we wouldn't. But in any case, FRBs, fast radio bursts, very powerful, coming from other galaxies, and very much readable and consistent, apparently, as soon as you figure out what the pattern is. All right, next is Billy, KF5PDS. Miss Billy, go ahead with any comments you would like from KE5I6.
I just have three things. One is, you had mentioned earlier that there were 3 guys in the film. There's actually 4. Don't forget Dave at the very end, who comes to the rescue with the big battery. And we finally get to see his face after hearing him on the radio, or on the phone after the phone calls. Don't forget, Dave was the 4th guy, so there's actually 4 in the cast. Number 2, this is really a net where I really regret that we can't sing over the air. This would have been a fun one to where we could have all done a little sing-along of maybe not the earworm from the film, but maybe our favorite. And number 3, I think if we ever look for a non-movie topic to explore that would be fun and engender good conversation, I think favorite earworms would be a good topic to pursue on a non-movie night if we decide to do something off-topic. I think favorite earworms would be a fun topic. All right, so that's all I have, and I'll send it back to you. This is KF5PDS, back to net.
Very good. Thank you, Billy. Yeah, and then you'll never get them out of your head. I know. All right, well, I think it's time to say goodnight to all my family. KE5ICX, MOUSE, or something like that. I don't know. But, all right, anybody else, any comments? And then I'm shutting it down for sure. Did I miss anybody? Please come now.
I'll check in for the count. Kilo Fox 5, Papa Victor, Forest Hill.
KF5, Papa Victor, I missed the last part of your sign and your name, please.
Yeah, KF5, Papa Victor, Name here is Paul, P-A-U-L, located over in Forest Hill, Texas. Actually, just was doing a little satellite work here, so using a handheld antenna right now, portable 5. Just a 2x2 call, KF5PB.
Hey, thank you for checking in, Paul. Yeah, we're here every Saturday night. We usually go until about midnight. Sometimes we've gone longer. This one should have ended early, but it didn't. It went past our normal time. So we do about 90 minutes on a net on a movie. So I'll just say this to everybody, and particularly for Paul, if you're interested, with participating and knowing what the movie is ahead of time. You can go to the Facebook page, which is, what is the Facebook page? Let me think. Afterglow, that's one word, movie is the second word. And then it has a list of the movies that we are proposing seeing, and then I put it about 3 weeks out so you can watch them ahead of time if you'd like. I will, if you don't like Facebook, send an email to me. My call sign's KE5ICX, Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-ray at yahoo.com, and just say you'd like to be put on the movie list. I'll put you on the movie list, and it'll give you the information on what the next movie is, and a link to find it, since who uses discs anymore? Nobody. So thanks for checking in. I appreciate it. I'm going to say goodnight. I'm getting a little tired here, so we'll see you next week. So the movie is Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home. Probably what we'll do is we will watch it, next week, and then we'll critique it on Saturday, and we'll figure out what we're going to do for the following week after that. So we'll see you next time. 7-3, everybody. Have a good evening. Have a good weekend. What's left of it, and we'll see you next Saturday here on the radio. This is KE5ICX. I'm clear.
Now, here's a thought, or more of a technical thing. Part 97 something or other, .113C states that no amateur station shall transmit music, but it doesn't say necessarily that you can't sing. Because frankly, when I sing, it's not musical. Thoughts? WT9V.
No, no, no.
You first, you first, you first.
There's an echo in here, here.
Don't go there, N5BB.
You had gone to sleep.
No. I'm not asleep yet. I'm getting very tired, though, Michael.
Go to sleep.
Some of our singing might qualify under the malicious interference section of Part 97, though. This is N5IMS.
I think it breaks the Geneva Convention as torture. I'm turning off the radio. This is N5BB. Good evening to all. And to all, a good night.
We could do rap. It's not actually music.
It's kind of like anti-music. Also, Bill's gone. We can play now.
I'll make some coffee.
I'll go ahead and put on a John Cage piece. It lasts about 4 minutes long and will be silent. Is that compliant? K5 EBS.
Might be compliant, but we're time out the repeater. We're back on the 3-minute timer rule in 5IMS.
I bet Tom could fix that timer.
Oh, I'm not actually going to do that. I was just being funny.